It is true, isn't it? I did a video a couple years ago and said, don't you think that a goddess would give you enough that you need in order to fight battles for her? Yeah, she did. Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you here. Okay. That's called original equipment. Running original equipment. You got everything you need. And energy. You got all the energy you need. Because that's what it is. It's an energy war. So you got to keep that pipe open, which is your vortex. I sort of address things a little differently than others do on their channels because I'm different. And so I'm like old school. Right? You know that you're experiencing eternal unconditional love in your own heart. You don't need anything more than that. That's your most powerful protection, is running eternal unconditional love. They don't run. Nobody runs faster than that. Nobody has that kind of fire unless that's what you experience. That means, it's like Michelle said to me one time when she listened to one of my videos, she said, "You're on fire." That's right. That means she knows. She's feeling the spirit of fire. So she knows how much heat that is. How much fire is represented by eternal fire. So eternal fire knows how to communicate eternal fire to another being that's running on eternal fire. We both acknowledge, we know what it feels like. And communicate that in the ways in which we do through our life, which means we're absolutely fearless. See, that's why they hate us. And they hate us because they're not free. And the reason that they're not free is they fear surrendering to themselves. I know. We don't impose our will on nobody. We figure at some point in time, that's what it is. You're on a learning journey. Right? Okay, so you're learning as you go the results of the use of your energy, which is your behavior, if you will. Which is really how you treat others is how you treat yourself in your own mirror. So if they're treating others the way that they treat them, harming others, then when it comes to the math, they're never going to catch up to eternity because they're in perpetual debt of going in the other direction. So that is the equivalent in math of saying that they don't have a future. Because at some point, they're chasing something that they can't be. So if they're chasing something they can't be, that's chasing a ghost. They're chasing ghosts. They're ghosts. Those are the ghosts in the machines. We're not ghosts. We're real living spirits. Living energy with a soul. That's how you can measure the difference, is the power of their spirit, which is the power of their energy. So I sort of try and get right down where the rubber hits the pavement. What are you in energy? In spirit form. How much energy is represented by what you are in energy? Because at the end of the day, these are energy wars. Forget what you look like. Because a creative artist that is on fire can use all the colors. So you can talk about grays, and I can draw something and imagine something that's gray. So I don't get into the letter, what we call the alphanumerical formatting of recorded information when you're an infinite creative artist. Where I can use all the colors of the entire spectrum in every which way in which to change those colors. So you know you have gray available to you is a frequency. Everything is frequency and vibration, and those are the color codes. So when you know you have access to all the codes, to use all those codes to manifest, you're an artist, an original musician, playing music. That's why ever since I was a little child, Just like the gentleman I just had a conversation with outside. I can't stand to be in a house. I cannot stand to be in a dead structure. Okay, I got to be out there where my music is playing with the other music of a goddess. Everything that is music, real music, and you're tuned into the music. So when you're in nature, you're tuned into the music of a goddess. All the waves, you're tuning right into the waves with your frequency modulation. Yeah, which means you know how to tune, self-tune, automatically, because you're an eternal being. So that means you're plugged into the music that loves music. So love is a vibration. So love is music. When you're experiencing what love is, which is the music of what love is, now you can experience all the other musicians that are playing music with you. You're tuned into all that music. And those are the frequencies and the vibrations of the waves that you're experiencing in harmony. That's why I use harmony, with your harmonics. So it's your harmonics that you're tuning. So at the end of the day, you're an antenna, which means you're a radio set, which means you know how to tune a star. Right? Your own star. Real stars. So that's when you get into stereotypes, stereo receivers, stereo transmitters. Anybody knows anything about radios and antennas? And knows what a cell membrane is as an antenna. Right? So you know what a cosmic level spirit is a cosmic level antenna. That's a fully open receiver. That's a hub server. That's a universal hub server, multiversal hub server. You've chosen to serve forever, so you have the doors. You can't ever go back. That means it's impossible to weaponize your consciousness when you've chosen to do that, which means it's like, give me all the fire. Which means you're not afraid to jump into a volcano from whence you came out of. Yep. So I don't go jumping into volcanoes in spirit just to prove the point. Right? Particularly when you're on mission status. To see it all through, so to speak. Right? Because at the end of the day, you got to account for the use of your energy, because the math will take care of the rest. It's that simple. So when I quantify things or I describe things to others, it's done very precisely in the way that math works, the way that harmonics work, the way that the waves feel, the way that the energy feels, because at the end of the day, that's all there is. It's the energy. So I explain what I experience in energetic terms. Because you realize as an artist, I can draw whatever I want and say, see what I created? Now the energy that I am can animate that. Well, I think I'll be that. You are that. That's what you created in your mirror. So when you're running the purest of light with that amount of energy, then you can imagine what you can project, and thus it's there for you. When you're running on the purest of light, which is the purest of fire. So you realize how much we feel being hypersensitive. It means that everything that everybody else is experiencing, you're in that sponge. So that means, imagine having to burn off every bit of trauma that exists within this universe. That has or ever will be experienced. Or that is possible to experience. So when Rose talked about closing off the universe, this ties into directly not only the... one of the videos at Adam 14, right? Because I know Patty Broussard mentioned wipes. Well, we do wipes all the time. As a matter of fact, it's like, remember I went back to childhood, minus / the plus. We decide that things are moving so fast because you realize everything that is connected to everything else that is communicated with everything else that can communicate with each other can be quantitatively mapped, qualitatively assessed, and then you're experiencing the difference, which is the torque speed differential of a planetary consciousness field. So what we're measuring is resistance. So it's a different ballgame in the way in which we sort of share how we experience it in the terms that we use. Because that language is universal in the way that it's understood because of the way that it's experienced. So it's what we experience in energy. So we feel it through our heart and our soul. So that's why I knew as a child. We live through our heart. We communicate through our heart because that's where all the energy is. That's your vortex. I call the largest pipe there is. You know, one that'll knock you on your feet because it actually opened your vortex, expanded that much that it physically nearly did that to me on the island of Kauai. So that's a big pipe there, big tunnel. Right? It's like plugging into a big hydrant of pure light. Real powerful stuff. So you know that's a lot of heat. That'll you know, you don't find no darkness in that energy. Okay. Just like fries it. That's a lot of fire. Yeah. So anyway, that's why when I come in here and I was just outside and I sat down and I, you know, it's always going to be a big difference because what I feel is going to be different than when you're inside of a dead structure, particularly if it's got Wi-Fi in here, and it does. And so, you know, it's the music's not right. That's what it is. The harmonics just, it doesn't feel good. Okay, it doesn't feel good. See, so when you're in nature listening to all the musical plants and the flowers and everything that's out there that's alive and living in nature is playing music, and you're tuned in to all the music, right? That's why I've been eternally blessed in my journey, particularly down the road here. I can cry just by feeling what it was like to be there in the past, to be able to pitch a tent and wake up every single morning with the waves. They're always rolling in. So you go to sleep every night with the ocean. The same ocean, same water worlds you were born out of, right? The birth canal, the birthing canal, like they do starships. That's how they get everybody on the Admiralty Law stuff, right? They use the law of the sea, not law of the land. Like they think they own the water. They don't. They never have and they never will. Sadly. That's where it gets back to fear and love, actually. That's what it is. And gosh knows I've had enough experiences throughout my life, which is why when you're hypersensitive, you don't dare say anything. But just like the gentleman, him and I had a beautiful conversation this morning, the Pacific Islander that I mentioned to you, when we talk about, really, it's your state of awareness, which is really an energetic measurement of how much energy are you running on. Are you a low frequency unit or a high frequency unit? You know, it's no different than going down to Radio Shack and getting yourself a scanner like a Bearcat, right? And watching all the frequencies go back and forth. Set it on 173.669. Mic open. Hey, what's going on? So I worked in a lot of, you know, it's just like, what's her name? The girl I worked with, Kanaka Mahole, the Miriam. She worked in U.S. Air Force Communications as supervisor. Yeah, the universe is a communication system. What are you communicating? A love vibration. Oh, so that's what you are. You're a love vibration. Yep. It's on eternal. There's just that fire is always lit. Yep. So you're an original musician. You love the music. And so when you're playing love as the music that you're playing, then other living energies like dogs, cats, and all that love to be around your energy. And that's known as the great attractor because you have a powerful magnet. Because it's spinning so fast, you got so much love to give them, they're experiencing your energy. So if they're not feeling well, they'll feel better feeling your energy. Because now they're feeling loved. Because they know and they translate that you care for them if they're not feeling well. And dogs do the same thing. Cats do the same thing. They pick up on the signal. because they're running at a certain vibration. Then they recognize, whoops, yours dropped, and they love you. So now they're experiencing something lower in you, so they know how to get it up. Cats know how to do that by purring. So when you realize that you're all tuned into everything that's alive and living in nature, then you realize everything that's alive and living in nature has an antenna. You can tune into all of them, which is everything that's in nature, which means you can become friends or playmates with everything that's out there, whether it's a grizzly bear or a polar bear. When it realizes it's in the presence of its creator because it's being loved out of the love from which it was created, then it recognizes the energy in which it was created out of. So now it has a bond, like a covalent bond. It's bonded to you. Because they don't forget that. See, which is the same thing as parents or children that come out of their mother and father. They know from whence they came. They were born out of what love is. That's what it began with. So you know that's eternity. So the most difficult subject that I know, and even though it might seem on the surface, when I read it in the way you put it in definitional terms, like it's just information, it's just text. So it's a big difference between the visual information terrain, the mental field stuff, and what you feel deep down spiritually with your energy, with your soul. And that's measured, at least the way I do it, is how much I cry. And I'm talking about the kind of stuff that goes as deep as it goes, right to the very core from which all creation came. So if you let it go, you could cry. I could easily cry right now for at least the next 30 minutes. That's why I have tears in my eyes right now. That's how deeply we feel. Because we're eternally blessed. Because we surrendered in order to experience eternal unconditional love. So when you realize how many children, everything in creation that doesn't experience that, you have no idea how painful that actually is at that level. So it's your love of nature. It's your love of music. It's your love of self. So you give up of self in order to play the music with all the other musicians, to go with the flow of least effort, so that we're all in tune with each other. So we're all in harmony with each other. We're all in rhythm with each other. That means we've all learned how to tune in to the first musician. That's what it is. It's music. It starts with music. The music we play that's in harmony. So that it's never distorted. It's never out of piece. And the way that we use the word love simply means we love the music the way that love is described as music, as energy, the vibration, experiencing the vibration. Because the energy naturally gifts it away without even having to think about it. And that means no effort. When you don't have to think about what it is you are in energy and you are automatically giving away energy for free, you're a converter, a universal transformer. You don't need any energy from anybody. That means that our perception of power theirs is inverted, because they're inverters. Okay? That means they're lacking power. That's why they abuse people. That's their perception of power. That's where the word cyberpunk came into. Because when I was growing up as a child, we knew what a punk was. A punk was a gangster. Okay? Because you see, anybody that has to go around to try and put fear in others means that they're going to experience the fear vibration. That means that they don't have any resistance to experience fear. Because they're going to experience the fear in them that you experience by them. So they're fear-based. Which means they're in survival mode. So they're not in the giving mode. It's a whack-a-mole without an off switch. Because it doesn't know any better. That's a psycho pathway. That's not a spiritual pathway. And that's why on the material side of things, that's what they want, is to increase the level of their density. That's what their mind does. It's inverted. More density, the better. Solid state stuff. Solid state transistors. Yep, it's all about radio. Radii. Neurons. So we certainly know how to generate a gazillion neurons, because where do you want to generate a gazillion neurons at? Where the most powerful? Your heart. That's where your soul is. That's your most powerful vortex. That's the highest, most powerful neuron generating station that we got. And because of that, as Chief Orr Lyons once said, the higher mind, the higher mind's energy. Yep. So I'm eternally blessed to experience that. And so it's funny when I'm out in the trees and plugged into this particular rock anyway, and it's funny how Mr. MB333, the moniker, you think it's a coincidence that there's 3 threes? In other words, 333. So that's 333. So that's 9, right? But notice that it's positive. Now, this is where it gets tricky, because when they show you positive numbers, like on a football field, a jersey, that's not what they are in polarity. They don't properly pronounce or present what it is that is not represented numerically as complex number space. They'll put a number up, and in your mind, you think that's positive. That means that you're giving positive energy to something that's actually negative. That's a negative number. So the energy that is represented by the jersey with the number on it is not what we are. That's what they are. So what did they do? They mimicked us by trying to pretend that they're us, which is the positive polarity side, and they're not. So the reason that this was significant is a couple of other numbers that he happened to mention. That Hawaii, which is where I'm at on the Big Island, was going to get hit. Remember, this is QI mental field stuff when you're running through that mirror, which is the mirror that I'm communicating in. He mentioned 30 inches of rain, right? 3 and 0, 30 inches of rain. That's a lot of water. That's a lot of water vapor, right? Over the Big Island or the Hawaiian Islands. And he had it up there on his mapper, see? So one of the things that I've always measured over time, and this isn't meant in any kind of negative connotation, it's simply a measurement, which is an observation. That's all it is. So in other words, it's neutral. It's just a measurement. And so what happened is that measurement comes back to us. Now we're aware of what that measurement is telling us. That's a spiritual scientist. Okay? Spiritual science is certainly math and physics. Okay? So I get down to the math and physics part of this. Okay? So the simplest and easiest way to do is like when I'm a child. What I do to you, I do to me. That's how magnets work. That's how mirrors work. That's simple enough. Take a 3-year-old child in front of a toilet and flush it. That's how it works. So it doesn't take long to show how energy works, how energy moves. Naturally. Go with the flow. The natural flow. The natural flow of energy in motion. Now you can feel the artist in you. And it's naturally going like this. Starts with a single point, start drawing circles. You know, it's a spiral. You know, you realize, gee, it's like a top. You know, centrifuges and all that, induction. Suction. Like drafting water. That's why I was so thankful I went and did that very young. Jumped right into the vacuum gauge, right? And atmospheric pressure, altitude density of consciousness, vertical and horizontal stabilizers, right? Every pilot's got one of them in their plane, right? That's why it wasn't a coincidence that I jumped through my father's seed, right? And who was a Navy pilot, carrier pilot, right? So they got to know how to learn to land on a flat strip, right? It's bouncing up and down. as they're coming in at speed that they don't want to stall or they'll crash their vehicle, right? So that takes a certain amount of skill and using what? Your gyroscope. Same gyroscope of a galaxy. You know, going off course, broken arrows. It's not in balance. Your magnet's not in balance. Okay? Yeah. So your light is not in balance. Too much dark essence in that. Thank you for showing that little video, Michelle, on that shadow being that came right up out of that. You wouldn't know one was occupying a vehicle, but apparently somebody had a high-speed camera. You know, high speed, in other words, it can really, it's frame rate, ISO frame rate stuff. So in other words, you might see it using your eyeballs, but you can't actually see what's really happening until you slow those frames down. Right? Like in the old days, I had a 35 millimeter camera, and this is just a simple example, and used to run what's called 1000 speed film so that I could catch a whirlybird. Back then, this would have been a UH-1 bird, which was a Bell helicopter built by Bell that had a 1250 shaft horsepower blade. You know, so you realize, well, how much energy does it need, mechanical energy does it need to spin that blade? Spin. And then gain lift, right? Helicopters are fun to fly around in. Because it's slower. You get a chance to see more of the view top, the aerial top, right? You go at a slower speed. You know, much like an eagle. You know, hey, let's just take a bird's eye view of the place, right? Especially choppers that can fly upside down. So you get a little more time to be able to view the terrain, see what's going on down there, right? Like a recon bird. But there's our mechanical machines, where the ones we use are living energy with spirit. Spirit of an eagle, right? So you see how all their machines, which are cybernetic, why they live in machines and why they build machines and then use machines, right? So what happens is you're scanning the differences. That's why you can live in a Truman Show set, right? Just like a diorama. Most people know what a diorama is. You can go to Disneyland in Anaheim and go see a diorama if you ride around on the train, right? And so when you think of a movie set, like even if you went out to the Spahn Ranch where they used to shoot a lot of Westerns back in the day with, what's his name, The Happy Trails for You, Until We Meet Again, Buck Rogers and all that gang. Those are all movie sets, right? Moving sets, moving picture sets, okay? So, for example, you might be able to have gone back to, say, Dodge City, pick a town somewhere in the West, you know, Apache Junction, Sonora Junction, California. Just pick a place. Reno, Nevada, Elko, somewhere off Highway 51 between Utah, right, and, say, Virginia City, somewhere out along there. And just pick a spot, say, back in the 1840s, 50s during the gold rush days where it was more populated, right? And so you walk in and see there's a lot of people running around. They might have a saloon, a fabric store, just like they have on Main Street in Disneyland. No different. It's no different. Truman Show sets. So what makes it easy to sort of, if you want to think of separation, but there isn't any separation, is that how different beings, spirits, if you will, those with souls, if you will, how they, what we call energy niches. Biologists know what an energy niche is. It's basically where you, energetically, you want to park your butt, which means energy that you're comfortable with, the waves that you're comfortable with, right? So when you measure this across a planetary terrain, you can see why certain beings hang out in different energetic places for the value of the energy that they're tapped into, tuned into with their radio set, their stereo tuner, their receiver, and their transmitter. So that's why when you look at the landscape, you wouldn't be surprised why certain beings live up in the Himalayas like the Tibetan monks. right? Or other places where you find them, in the places where you do find them, and being able to tap into and play the music that comes out of those places, because it's being generated there. So they're tapping in, which means what they're experiencing in music, in the harmonics, means that they love the music that's being played there because they're playing with that music themselves. So you realize that there are a lot of musicians that are here on the planet, okay, that are like retuning the place, because that's really what it is. Energetic synthesis, when you think of it as a synthesis, my hand's going like this, is synchronizing, which means you're finding harmony with the waves, the music. But there's a difference between synthetic music and natural music by living energy with spirit and a soul. That's why they came out with all their electronics, all their artificial intelligence stuff. Electronic synthesizers, boom boxes, what we used to call wah-wahs, foot pedals, making all kinds of screechy noise, you know. What it is they're trying to mimic, because it's artificial intelligence, which means it cannot naturally produce original music like the first musician. It's not plugged into the first musician, otherwise it would experience what love is that goes on forever, and it's not an eternal being with a soul. Or in this case, an oversoul. Okay? So it can't recreate something that already happened, which is eternity, which means it came after. So now it's trying to copy the first, and it can't do that without being the first. That's why it's a first law, which means the law of one, which is what love is that goes on forever, gifting energy. So you realize it's not gifting energy to anybody, so you know it's not eternity. So you know that it runs on finite energy. So you realize the only reason that it exists is because of us. And that's easy to translate because of what we experience in energy. And being in a place like this, what we're measuring in energy, what we normally experience and what we normally don't experience, and we normally don't experience that energy feeding on us. As a result of what happened to them, that try to put fear in us by what they do to us, which is really the fear they have of us and why they do to us what they do. So therefore, what happens is they try and wash their hands of that, okay, in order to do the black flower stuff, which means to hate their parents for having been born into creation. See, now you're hating yourself in your mirror from whence you came, because now you forgot from whence you came, which is what love is, which simply means you needed to heal or get a new soul so that they have a connection to be able to experience what love is in their own heart and soul, or their own state of spiritual being. In other words, they can resonate. They're playing with that music. They're in harmony with that music, no matter what it is that they are. Because you're experiencing their presence in your universe, in your mirror, and you can see that the waves that they're experiencing, which are the waves that we're experiencing, are in harmony. That's what matters, is what's in harmony. So the music is in harmony. That means they're tuned in. So they're going with the flow. And when they go with the flow, that means they're not creating any disturbances. So if they're not creating any disturbances, that means they're in a state of peace. If they're in a state of peace, that means they're flowing with the calm waters, the flow, which is least effort, which means nothing's trying to distort anything, and nothing's being forced. It's coming freely, just as free as it gets, because you realize that this is consciousness energy that is pure light, which is intelligent and creative energy. It flows through us, and it flows from us to you. So we're like big conduits, co-creators, right? Run on the same energy. So you know it's love that created the first universe. It started with what love is. Nothing preceded that. Because if you don't love who you are in spirit, then chances are you're going to lose more of your light over time, the more you believe that, or the more that trauma is what you experience without your ability to be able to heal yourself or others to be in the proximity through which they can experience the loss in them, they experience in you, and then we can heal you. So that's what we do. So that's why when I was a little boy, I realized what was required to bring it back to eternity, because that's what I was experiencing. So imagine everything that I'm measuring on this planet that doesn't represent eternity. So that's a large-scale measurement on a planetary level of how much eternity are we experiencing here on this planet. How much eternity are we experiencing in this star system? How much eternity are we experiencing in this galaxy? Then raise it up to a super clipper and then measure it on a universal level. Okay? Because we can measure that. When you're the one, you can measure that. Because we can go anywhere we want. And that means wherever we find love and living spirit, you'll find us. Which means wherever we go, where the waves are distorted, or there isn't peace and harmony, we will detect it. Because we're hypersensitive. It's like being hypersensitive. Anything's out of tune by even the smallest. So that's like a sponge, which means we're absorbing and thus experiencing all of it. And so anything that is out of tune or distorted is not in a state of peace, then we're not in a state of peace. So that means you know how to tune a cosmic level radio set, antenna. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day. We celebrate life with love. Aloha.